Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Recruit, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I love that that's just this random thing. That's how things kind of work, where it's like someone can run up and give you a file because someone knows the moment you look at it, you can't unsee it, so you have to do something about it. And Owen cracked open a file he was handed, and even Nyland's like, whoa, you actually looked at it? He's like, wait, so you do not want me to tell you what's in the file? He's like, did I say that? It's like, well, it's something of the AI variety. It's like, just get out. And he was initially going to give it to Lester, but Owen threw Violet's name out there because it's like, yeah, Violet was kind of upset because it's like, right, like Lester and Owen got to do that whole thing last episode together, and they are kind of like buddy-ish. Owen's like, yo, Lester, you should have seen him, he was amazing, but even Lester's like, yo, we're not buddies. Obviously, him and Violet are like more like the duo, but it's like, yeah, like Owen was trying to help her out, but she didn't like the job because it's like, yo, AI for one is a horror show and the legality of it is a mess. And she's like, you're trying to screw me over. He was like, no, I was trying to do you a favor. It's like, I mean, this just adds fuel to the fire that like Violet already says she couldn't trust Owen, and now she's like, oh, you're trying to like screw me over, which I think it's funny considering like, well, you and Lester were planning to do the same thing. You're trying to keep an ear to the ground to find out what Owen is mixed up in, because I think you're trying to like undercut him when it comes to his whole Gray Miller thing. So but that's why she kind of feels like, oh, you know what we're doing, so you're trying to screw us back. And it's like, I mean, to be fair, I mean, they did the whole like sending you to Yemen to get tortured by Dawn, which we'll circle back to Dawn soon enough. But it's like, yeah, but other than that, you haven't screwed him over too much lately other than that. But I'm sure in her mind, it's like, oh, you're trying to get me back for the torture you went through in Yemen. So, which, let's stay on that situation. I do love that it's like, yeah, there was kind of an incident. Basically an AI like ripped a guy's arm off for a robot. It's like, oh, rather than starting small, they went, as she said, they spent $100 million and went and built a Terminator. I think and it's just the creepiest thing, because it's literally a Terminator just standing in the room, and the room is full of blood. She's like, that's a lot of blood. And he's like, it's not, it's programmed with all these interrogation tactics and stuff like that. Yeah, which obviously there's a little bit you can kind of, legally speaking, when it comes to like, or not necessarily even legal. I mean, it's morally wrong, but there's also like the gray area of like, yeah, you could push the interrogation tactics a little bit in a more physical lane. But the problem is we didn't program the robot to realize that we're not robots. It's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, that's why I went so hard on the paint, because it's like, oh, this thing is just like me, so let me push it. Oh, I ended up breaking its arm. It's like, you would think you would teach AI the difference between human and robot. So that's why it went as balls to the wall as it did. And Violet's like, oh my God, this situation sucks. It sucks so much. And she's like, oh, this is such a legal nightmare. Cause she's like, she's like, I don't care. I'm not about to pay attention to anything else here except getting eyes on this particular project, so I can prevent all of us from getting brought in front of the Hague about everything that's going on here, legally speaking. And she kind of felt like she was screwed, because she's like, the moment this file gets reported, like my name is going to be on it, and it's just going to be a whole whopping issue. Luckily, she had her best bud Lester there to help her, and they looked through it. That technically speaking, from the moment the robot is turned on to the moment it's turned off for the first time, or like during this whole thing, the entire time is the testing process. So as long as they never, ever turn this robot off, technically the testing phase never goes through, and you never have to legally file anything about it, because the testing phase doesn't have to be filed until the testing phase is over. So it's like, cool, put them in how long does the battery last? It's like, well, because it's a new technology, it lasts forever. It's like, oh, cool, lock it up in a closet. Until when? Until I retire, and that way I don't have to be the lawyer that has to deal with this. It can be someone else's thing. I'm sure that buck is going to constantly get past. It's like, wait, this AI thing? Well, it's always going to be just one of those things that's just kind of locked up forever, which is even sadder because Tim is his name. The moment the guy who's in charge turns around, Tim looks at him, smiles, and kind of just like waves. I also love that she was like, why doesn't it have a face? It's like, well, we want to work out the kinks first before we decide what it actually looks like. that doesn't help the situation when you just have a robot. Doesn't, it's very, once again, Terminator-esque, not even Westworld-ish or Terminator-esque in the fact it's got looks like a human being. It's like, no, because it looks just like a Terminator without the skin on, it just looks even creepier when it waves in a room of blood. So luckily, Violet worked her way through this. Once again, I'm sure she's going to try and screw Owen over for this, but maybe in the long run, it's a victory for her. I don't know if this is a victory in all totality. I mean, the fact that she was able to sweep it under the rug, Nyland might be like, all right, good job on you, smart thinking, kind of having that settled, and we don't have to worry about any of that. It just basically stays one of those projects that stays locked up forever and ever and ever. But she might hold some animosity towards Owen for that, so... other than that, since I brought her up before, Dawn shows up, and obviously once again, Owen does a really good job holding his composure, because the moment he saw Dawn, it just all came rushing back to torture he went through. It's like, Dawn. It's like, yeah. So, basically, the plan that he had set in motion of like, yeah, let's get the Attorney General to drop that, is like, no, because they want Max back in the field in Belarus because someone wasn't in the FSB, like someone she was pretty close to has risen in the ranks, and we need her because she's the best asset possible. Because once again, no one over there knows that she was an asset, so they could slip her back into play, which Max wanted in the first place, because she's like, yeah, I don't want my duality of being an asset for the CIA to come back to screw up, because if it ever came out, it blow up her life in Belarus and she can never go back. That's the whole point of trying to go back. So they need her cleared legally. Nothing that can be tied to the CIA, or at least look like it's tied to the CIA. So they legally have to find another way to kind of get her case dropped. So Owen has to work on that. He kind of brings it up to Max, which Max reads the situation as, hey, they're going to try and kill me. It's like, well, why would they put you back in operations? It's like, for one, I'm really good at my job. So yes, both things could be true, that they do need me in this position, but they do also want me dead. Because she knows this is because of Xander, which he's like, wait, how do you know Xander's name? You said you needed his cover identity. Now you've also threatened the guy. And she's like, I might have sent something that might be construed as hostile. It's like, cool. And it's like, and once again, Max is kind of her own worst enemy, because she's also like, it is that thing of, yeah, we're working together, but for her, it's like, he's the more submissive partner in this. I'm the one calling the shots. I'm really in charge here. She kind of looks at Owen as more of her mouth puppet. Yeah, like you say and do what I tell you to do. I'm the one that's really in control. I'm the one that gets to dictate everything. To be fair, once again, she is the one with all the leverage too, so she doesn't take Owen seriously. She does underestimate him. She kind of sees him as like, you're just a means to an end. So she doesn't respect him. So when he's like, hey, I'm gonna handle this witness situation, do not try and kill the witness, she's like, okay. He's like, no, promise me you won't go behind my back and trust me. Like, all he's ever done is try. Like, legitimately, Owen has just done everything he can to be trustworthy to Max, and time again, she spits in his face when it comes to that. But considering the whole spy game, considering who Max is, and she hasn't had the best, belief in people connected to, the CIA, it's understandable why she's like, no, I can only trust me. I can't trust anyone else, despite Owen doing everything and proving time and time again that he is and can be trustworthy. So she gets someone through Cora to end up hiring, like, she gets someone, well, because she got in contact with someone through, I wonder, was she being legit when she said that? Because she said, like, oh, it's someone else who's, the person, well, yeah, because she went through Cora, and Cora probably went through someone else too, because I was about to say, it's like, well, the intermediary, it's Cora, isn't it? So maybe she was lying to him just so she wouldn't have to call off the killer, or maybe it is a thing of, like, once again, like, there's 2 points of separation, because it's like, right, the person who got contacted for the kill, who put the kill through, who ordered the kill, got contacted by Cora, so you have to go through Cora, the person she talked to, and that person being the person who actually hired the killer. So maybe that's why she didn't just say, like, oh, like, either she was lying about it because Cora is a middleman, but she might be, like, the second middleman, and there might be she's the first middleman, but there might be a second middleman who actually hired. And there might be a little bit of a disconnected chain there, so that she legitimately can't call off the hit later on. Also, you got to give it up to Amelia for being like the MVP. Like the moment Dawn was in Owen's office, she's like, yo, what are you doing here? Oh, you must be from operations. Like, well, it gave me away. It's like, the two goons that are with you? And it's like, yeah, Owen probably wouldn't appreciate you being in his office. And then, like, she made sure the door was locked and closed. I was like, yo, Amelia coming through. It's like, yo, having your back. It's a good thing, too, because she was about to put a listening device in it. Once again, I find it so hilarious that, like, Amelia, who was, like, supposed to be brought up in this situation simply because she was supposed to get close to Owen just to find out information and report it back to Lester and Violet, ends up being the one kind of saving him from someone planting a bug in his office trying to figure out what he knows and stuff. So that all worked out. But it's like, yo. And then she's also like, right, I should probably like get out of your office before someone sees that it's locked and see us in here and think we're doing something together. He's like, oh yeah, that would be kind of bad, wouldn't it? And then like they start making out hardcore. So it's like, cool, yeah, did like a date for the night. But then he also has like to deal with the senator and the subpoena. So he went to like a dinner, a party thing that Hannah had to go to because of her parents, which I love that Owen's just finding out. I was like, wait, your parents don't like me? Why? She's like, yeah, it's something I found out like after you slept with. He's like, what, you think I slept with so-and-so? And she's like, I'm not about to go down like memory lane about like all kind of like the bad times and stuff. So I was like, maybe there's kind of misconceptions or something that went on with their relationship or something. Because I'm like, he's like, wait, is that why we broke up? Because you thought, I mean, I think there's a lot of underlining issues with Owen himself that probably led to the breakup. But it is pretty clear that it isn't just Owen who's feeling things towards Hannah. It's the other way too. But neither one's willing to pull that trigger. I mean, I think that's a complicated thing. And when you stay pretty close to an ex, and especially because like both of them are kind of Amelia's not looking for anything like serious, at least for now or whatever. She's just looking at this like, hey, I enjoy the companionship and I like the sex. I like you, you're handsome, you're fun to be around. That's about it. Like whether he serves a larger purpose of like, I think she made it clear she didn't want a relationship, but it could build into one because she's also pretty clear on how he feels about Hannah, which I don't think she'd have an issue with. Once again, it's like, when you're with me, you're with me. I should be your only focus. Obviously, that wouldn't work if him and Hannah ever got back together, obviously. But then I'm also kind of like, yeah, Amelia's kind of the MVP right now, but like she could probably end up being his worst enemy if things go super sideways on that front. Especially considering like he goes to Amelia a lot. Like she's the only person in that building. I mean, he asked Lester for help a little bit this episode because they're in a better spot. Maybe it seems those are the people in the building he interacts with the most. Obviously, like Giannis, but I guess it's like considering everything Giannis has been going through recently, yeah, I can't really go to him for help anymore because he's like, yeah, that's kind of a no-go, leave me alone. So he's kind of going through Lester and mainly Amelia, and I'm sure eventually down the road when things are kind of smoothed over between both of them, him and Violet could get to that point as well, so. But I love that, like, he was supposed to be on his best behavior at the dinner, but he's like, I'm not going to promise that. And if I do say that just so you take me alone, you know I'd be lying. So no, I'm not going to promise to behave, but I'll try. So they go, and I love that back and forth. It's like, oh, you were working as a lawyer for the CIA. This seems very fitting. He's like, now, I'd really love to know what that actually means, because he now knows, like, oh, so now I realize you didn't like me, so. But Hannah had the idea of like, well, the only reason why the senator loves pushing you around with the subpoena, trying to get dirt on Nyland, is that he knows that you're a fresh face. He thinks you're a nobody, but you're here at this party. You shake some hands, have a conversation with some pretty powerful people. Then he's going to realize like, wait, maybe you're not the nobody I thought you were. And the plan ultimately does work. He ends up pushing back the subpoena for like 2 weeks or something. I mean, he's like, yeah, prefer if it was completely removed, but still. And that whole situation is really sad too, because like Owen and Hannah were jamming, and they were, you could tell. Because she's in that predicament where it's like you're at that point in your life where you're just like, I mean, I'm 30 and I'm still not the responsible adult I should be. I won't go into the ins and outs of it, but that's what she's worried about. It's like, hey, I don't want to be like grow up and do everything to be a responsible adult and then look back on life and be like, yo, I haven't, I wasted my youth. Like while I was young, I didn't kind of live it up and party up. And he's like, well, that's what I'm here for. I'm always going to be that person that kind of gets you to kind of cut loose a little bit, not have to be serious, which I think that's why Hannah does. Like, I think she likes that aspect of because Owen kind of balances out like that side of herself, like kind of like, hey, you get to enjoy life, you kind of got to live it up. So I think that's always been a double-edged sword because she appreciates that, but when you have that in conjunction with her life where it probably seems like her parents want this from her, they want that from her. Obviously there's a whole conversation about obviously she hates the job she currently has. So Owen ends up being that complicated conundrum in her life, even not dating. I'm sure it was even more of an issue when they were dating, but not as much when they're friends. But it comes with its own complications because, hey, they're feeling it in that moment. Like they were in the bathroom, she almost kissed him, but he pulled away because what him and Terrence said earlier, because Terrence was like, hey, she deserves to be happy. And for him, it's like, I want that, but I don't want to be that thing in your life. I don't want to kind of screw up what we have because he wants her, legitimately wants her to be happy. And he's like, hey, you're also in a relationship and I don't want to put you in a position where you do something that you'll regret. And it's like, yeah, you're with Jeff, who works at the White House. Finishes every sentence with that. Like when he was first introduced, I was like, that did seem like a douchey thing to kind of introduce yourself like that. You could have just been like, oh yeah, my name is Jeff. Like you don't have to like the fact that you went out of your way to be like, yeah, I work at the White House. It's like, you don't have to, like, unless someone asks you for it, you don't have to volunteer like, oh, but the fact is you're volunteering like that. It's like you have to kind of, that's you rubbing it in someone's face. Unless it was like a more official thing, sure, like, oh, I'm so-and-so, I work for blah, blah, blah. Sure, in an official capacity, sure, but it's like you're on a date with your girlfriend. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But you could tell immediately Amelia was kind of like, right, yeah, sure. No, you have plans with that lady, sure, whatever. Like, I'll probably go order pizza and, hang with, like, Jeff and stuff. It's like, it's sad, but I think that was him legitimately trying to do the right thing because he's like, I'm trying to do right by you because, yes, I still like you, Hannah, and if I could have my ways, I would want that to happen. But it's also kind of like, well, if I kissed you and I already have plans with Amelia, that's super scummy. So he was trying to be that was the good guy thing to do in that moment. And especially considering him and Amelia immediately have sex after, which you could tell, like he had that look like, oh boy, yeah. Like despite how I'm feeling like, oh, this is crazy, this is happening right now. And even later on, she's like, okay, so let's go off and have sex again. It's like, yo. But it's such a complicated spot to be in. Like I said, just that look up when like his clothes are coming off, he was just kind of like, oh man, like he felt conflicted even in that moment. So I think especially considering, like I said, the conversation he had with Terrence, because Terrence and his SO Tad are in this spot where like they're having that conversation of what are we, like defining our relationship and where are we going to go? Like, will it go even further than this? And for Terrence, it's like, dude, I might be a little old fashioned. I want, get married and stuff like that, kind of have a family of my own, which you have, Owen saying like, hey, when it's all said and done, you should be with someone that actually makes you legitimately happy. And if that person doesn't appreciate you for you, then like, they're not worth it. They don't deserve you. And so we do find out later on that Terrence broke up with Tat because of that. And obviously that news all kind of came at once with Owen kind of in his sad boy bag because of everything with Max. Because he got advice from Amelia, yet again, which I love. It's like, she's like, I need you, okay, you want my advice? You're going to have to do it as Anderson Cooper. Like I told you, like I practice as like the head of like a news station or whatever, so... And he has to pretend to be Anderson Cooper. And she's like, yeah, and gave him like the whole how to handle the WITSEC situation. So he goes to interview. I was like, oh man, this is going to blow up in your face. I thought by the time he got there, Danny, the witness, was going to be dead. Oh God, I'm completely forgetting the great part too. The whole situation with the Phoenix office. It's like, oh yeah, the CIA has like offices like in so many different states and stuff. But obviously like he's like, yeah, it's something like the C-list players there and they hate everyone at Langley because the Langley is the cool kids and everyone else are like the crappy kids. Oh God, there's so many tangents I'm going to go. Okay, I'm going to finish everything with like the Phoenix squad, which I love that he's like, hey guys, I need your help with this. It's top security, and I can't promise that it'll get Langley to notice you. I can't even promise it if it will get you name brand soda in your fridge, and the guy's sitting there drinking like the obscured can drinking. It's like, oh man, they won't even give you name brand soda. They give you the off brand stuff. Hey, no slight against the off brand soda, but like the fact is, like, the government's not willing to kind of slide you a little extra cash. Won't even get you the good amenities. The office looks run down. It's like it's effed up to say they are the forgotten stepchildren. It's like, oh yeah, I'm here with my family. You're kind of the side family, you know. So, but I love that. It's like, yeah, but like, I mean, what did you guys do to deserve to be here? And the guy's like, oh, me? I mistook Myanmar, Myanmar with Malaysia during a covert operation, and there were casualties. And Owen's kind of looking at him as like, I mean, yeah, like other people, anyone would have made that mistake. And then the kid turns around and points to the lady. He's like, see, someone else is kind of on my good. And that lady's like, whatever, dude. And so it's like, hey, you put in a good word with Langley, because they were supposed to, I guess, roll up and pretend to be the marshals during the whole thing with Danny. But it's like, they never got in contact. And it's like, I actually was kind of hoping the Phoenix Squad was going to come through and save the day. But I guess they were waiting for his call. I guess it's like, right, he was going to call them and then they were going to show up. But yeah, things kind of didn't work out. Plus, Owen probably legitimately did forget about them. So whether that comes back to bite him because they're like, oh, we helped you out and you kind of did nothing for us. They were going to be in the middle of all this. But it's a good thing you didn't roll up, because you probably would have gotten killed. So that would have super sucked. But yeah, back to the dating thing really quickly. I thought by the time Owen got there, Danny, like, especially because the door was cracked, I was like, oh man, Danny's dead. I was like, man, Max screwed the pooch on this. He found another way, but you already put out the hit. It's like, oh no, he's still alive. And the moment the dog started barking, I was like, oh god, the killer's there. So luckily they survived that situation. Obviously, like, Owen's not like, I mean, he can put up a decent enough fight, but he wasn't like, he's not a like well-trained fighter in that regard. So ended up getting advice from Max, which is kind of a, you know, the opposite ends of just kind of like the Amelia Lester, like, advice and stuff that he gets. But luckily got away from the killer. I thought, because I know, well, I guess that was the plan, because I was like, Danny was supposed to get the gun. I thought the point was to get the gun and shoot the guy, or at least give it to Owen. And because I thought, like, oh man, Owen's going to be mad at you, but Owen didn't say anything. I was like, well, the gun got tossed out the window. The guy doesn't have access to his weapon. So I guess it worked out in the long run. I mean, he still went outside, grabbed the gun, and started shooting them like when they were escaping. But yeah. Because Max was telling him basically he's going to have to fight and kill the dude because she can't call it off. So, I mean, he can't go after the witness now. So it's like that, the job was a failure. So that's just kind of, that's the end of that. So don't have to worry about him coming after the guy. So, because, you know, the CIA's kind of version of WITSEC, kind of making him kind of disappear by pretending like he's been an asset the entire time. So that kind of ends up getting a case drawn, which sucks on the Kelly front, because obviously it's like this whole thing with Max. It's like, and Owen ultimately feels bad about that, because it's like, right, he actually checks in on Kelly when he was there. He was like texting her, being like, hey, just want to check, see if you're okay. She's like, I don't know whether to kind of like what to do. Like, she made some reference and she was like, I'm going to do that to this pool, or whether to send you pictures of my boobs. But he's asking her like, maybe she should go therapy. I don't know if that's an option he went down when it came to his dad's death. Probably not. He found his roundabout way of dealing with things, but he didn't, it seems, as we can tell with his behavior, he didn't handle things in the best way when it came to, when it came to all that. He doesn't handle things in the like healthiest way, is kind of what I'm saying. But yeah, it sucks, because like her dad's murder case got dropped because of all this. And Owen confronts Max about it. It's like, we're done. Like, I've done so much for you. All I did was ask you to trust me. But she's like, yeah, you're not actually going to walk away from this, because she's like, because you still need me. She's like, I'm the one that's going to teach you how to survive this. You think just because this is settled that you're out of the minefield. It's like, no, because you got this job, you were forever mixed and then like intertwined with Max. So anything that goes sideways, like, you're always going to be drawn back into that, especially when it comes to Dawn, because it turns out, yeah, like Xander went to her about all of this. So getting Max released, yeah, it's what Max wants, but she also does expect that Xander is behind this whole operations thing. And it's like, once again, both things can be true. And so, because Dawn is looking into Owen, trying to figure out, like, right, you could be one of us. You could be one of the cool kids. You have all these aspects about you could lead to you being operations. And she's like, I thought you were kind of a nobody lawyer. And now, like, you find, because you're mixed up in all of this, I'm trying to figure out what your whole deal is. Like, why'd you become a lawyer in the first place? You could be with one of the cool kids. But he's like, I don't want to be with the cool kids. I hate the cool kids because everywhere I went, the cool kids would always beat me up. And so Don's like, huh, okay, interesting, fair enough. He's like, especially from the person that tortured him and stuff like that. Why would I want to like really work? He's just like, yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. So, but now it's like, yeah, even Owen can be an obstacle because they don't know how much Owen knows. So, hey, to keep operations safe, like we need to potentially silence him. So, and obviously because of that, you always have to be careful too, because it's one of those situations of when this espionage thing of, hey, it's not just going to be you that's on the back burner. Like everyone you care about is going to get thrown into the mix of this. So that includes for him, Terrence and Hannah. But then he's also got the complicated thing of, hey, like I haven't been the best friend a really good friend or anything recently, because he even called Hannah up. She's like, oh, this wasn't about Terrence or me. This was about you. Yes, you have a good heart and stuff like that. Sure, but you're selfish. And he's like, no, sorry. And she's like, wow, must be really bad. Because she's like, you only ever call me up because you want me to make you feel better about the decisions you made when you do something wrong. And he's like, and I think this really struck a chord with him where it's just like, right, here I am. I screw things up for Kelly because he's like, oh, Max, you're the one that's going to destroy my life. She's like, really? And now he realizes, like, I think it kind of sparked inside of him. Was like, yeah, I can't blame anyone for my decisions, no matter what other extenuating circumstances it was, whether it's Max or not. I'm the one that made the decisions that ended up hurting Kelly. I'm hurting Hannah. I'm not being a good friend to Terrence in his time of need either. So I think I think he's just drowning in a lot of like what's going on with him right now. So there's a lot of regrets on that front. It seems like the only one who kind of walked away from this situation, this episode, well, once again, Violet had her victory. But other than that, it's like Max, and now you have Owen kind of feeling like shit just, because of just everything. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see how this all plays out. But yeah, he thinks he's out of the frying pan, but he's still cooking. The heat's just not as hot right now for him, so he thinks he's out of the frying pan, but it's like, no, you're still smack dab in the middle. It's just the heat hasn't turned up yet, but it's right around the corner. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.